All right, so what we're going to do for the next assignment here is we are going to look at using some positive and negative using a quick inversion technique. And we're going to do this focusing on balance and really creating emphasis in certain areas. I'm going to show you how we can do that using Photopea. The first thing we need to do is get an image. Now, I'd like you to take your own photograph and try to get a good photo. For mine, I'm simply going to, again, use my camera here, but if you have one from a picture that you already took, you could load it into the program as well. So here we're going to go to take a picture, just like normal, and it should pop up. There I am. Okay. So for this picture, I'm just going to maybe just look here. Okay. And now what we're going to do is, first of all, we don't need all this extra negative space. So I'm going to go ahead and crop my picture. And what we're going to do is, using this picture, we are going to create an interesting positive and negative, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. The very first thing I want to do, though, is I like to duplicate my layer and turn the background off so I have a backup. Now, the next thing we can do is we're going to go up here to Image, Adjust, and all the way at the bottom, you're going to see where it says Desaturate. Now, this is going to be a black and white image. You can use hints of gray, or not gray, sorry, red. You can use some red, just like his work did, but for now, we're just simply going to desaturate. All right, so the picture looks really dull right now. It does not have much contrast. So the next thing we're going to do is go to Image, Adjust, and you can see it says Brightness and Contrast. We also have levels, which we've talked about, but we're just going to go to Brightness and Contrast for today. Brightness and contrast essentially allows us to bump our contrast, which is going to make a larger difference in the black and white, so it has less gray. Now, we can actually decrease or increase the brightness, but it's not actually necessary all the time. We don't want our image to get too dark, and we definitely don't want it too light. Okay, so I'm actually going to decrease the darkness just a little bit and bump my contrast a little more. And you might have to go a little lighter now that I've bumped it. Okay. So I've actually added a lot of contrast here. Again, we started way back here, but I don't feel like it was enough change. There was too much gray. Now the next thing I'm going to do is kind of just play around with the picture and the settings. And what I'm going to do for that is I am going to be using the rectangle selection tool. You could use the ellipse, you could use the lasso or polygonal, whatever you want to use. All I'm going to do is select an area. I'm going to go up to Image. I'm going to go to Adjust. Down here, we have Invert. Now, Invert is essentially going to create a negative of what we want. And we were talking about our positive negative, and that's kind of what we're doing here. And we're basing our designs on this work. Oops, not that one. On this work. So you can see this is actually an inverted image right here, and I'm using the marquee selection in the same way using a square. So here, I'm going to simply go Image, Adjust, and I'm going to invert it. It's going to look real weird. Almost looks scary. Now, again, I can actually continually do this, and I can make selections on wherever I want. And it's going to invert the inversion, okay? And you'll see what I mean here in a minute. It's kind of confusing to explain. So now, since I selected the area that was already inverted, it inverted it back. And it's kind of fun to mess with this. And right now, I don't really have a strategy here. I'm just playing around with it. Again, Image, Adjust, Invert. And you can see my eyes now went back to the other inversion because it was inside that frame. So again, if I do another frame, my eyes are going to go back to the, again, looking normal because they're going to invert again. Now, right now, there's no method to my madness here. I'm simply playing around with it. But what we want to do is we want to come up with a design that we feel is in balance and interesting. Okay. So again, we're not simply just, you can play around just like I did. But at the end of it, what we really want to start doing is get a feel for balance and have a design. So you can do, just like we just did here, we can do that over and over, whatever shapes you want. You can use different designs. But at the end of the day, when we're done with our design, we want an interesting, inverted, and so it's a positive and negative design that also uses balance. So that means, again, balance you should understand, but it is simply meaning that the left side, the right side, the top, and the bottom all look like they have the same visual weight. So right now, this does not have the same visual weight because everything feels like it's on the right side. So again, we can come in here, and we're going to simply add design and so forth. And again, we don't necessarily just want it to be one way or the other. We want to have it look interesting. And again, it's just something that I'm kind of playing around with. And I kind of think it's fun to work with design. So right now, if we look at it, me personally, I feel like the left side, all this darkness here, the inverted section, is creating too much visual weight and creating it to look off balance to my left. Now, I did say you could give it a hint of red. So if you did want to come in and add a little bit of red to an area, you could do that. Just remember, when you're adding red, we don't want it to be a very, well, you can add bold red, I guess, if you want, but just remember how it's going to affect the balance and the emphasis. Remember, emphasis is that first spot we look. So if it were me and I first looked at this image, I feel like the eye is the focal point of this design. And again, that means the focal point simply means where we looked first. And again, if you do something, let's say we invert it and you think, oh, I really don't like how that looks, all you have to do is use your history bar, or you can just go edit, undo, and just create a unique design using the inversion tool. And again, you're just going to keep working with it until you're happy with your design. That looks kind of neat, but again, I feel like the left is much heavier than the right. So again, I'm trying to get my balance as good as I can get it. And I'm using adjust and invert the entire time. Control D is deselect. And again, we're just trying to create a design that we think is interesting and maybe put a splash of red in there.